Right now, Nepal is in the middle of an election frenzy, facing a moment that is absolutely going to define its future. And let me tell you, this isn't just another election. It's a true crossroads, shaped by a generation that's demanding change from the inside and by global superpowers watching its every move from the outside. To really understand what's at stake, we have to start with one single powerful number.
30,000. Just let that number sink in for a second. So, what's it all about? Well, that's how many young Gen Z protesters absolutely flooded the streets of Kathmandu back in September 2025, bringing the entire country to a grinding halt. Their actions, their anger, and their demands, they're the direct reason we're even talking about this election today.
So to really get what this election is all about, we first have to dig into the deep, deep frustration that lit the fuse for those protests.
Okay, this timeline really puts it all into perspective. Look at the start, 2008. That's when Nepal becomes a republic. Now just follow that line all the way through to 2025. You see that long stretch? That represents 17 years of growing instability and promises that were just never kept. It's all that built-up frustration that finally explodes into those massive youth protests, which leads us right here to this critical election in 2026.
And what were they so angry about? You know, the immediate spark might have been a social media ban. But the real reasons, as you can see, they run so much deeper. We're talking about widespread corruption, political favoritism, a non-stop merry-go-round of political instability, a total lack of jobs that's forcing people to leave the country, and just a basic failure to deliver services. This was a protest against the entire system.
Okay, so you've got this massive wave of public anger. How in the world is the political establishment responding? Let's take a look at the promises they're making.
The one thing that really defines this whole campaign is a huge shift in what people want. Voters, especially, and these new parties, they're moving away from old-school party loyalty. The new demand is super simple. They just want results. They want service, and they want real development.
And this table, it breaks down that divide perfectly. On one side, you've got the new parties, like the RSP, and they're pushing for a whole new way of doing things. Technocratic, anti-partisan. Basically, they want experts in charge, not career politicians. And they're making massive promises, like creating 1.2 million jobs. Then on the other side, you've got the established parties, like the UML. And they're making equally huge pledges, like building a 10 trillion Nepalese rupee economy. But they want to do it their way, through the traditional party system.
But, and this is a huge but, here's the catch. While all these promises sound incredible, the source material points out that they're often, quote, loud and evocative, but lack concrete plans of action. So, yeah, there's a ton of ambition, but not a whole lot of detail on how any of this is actually going to get done.
But here's the thing. This election isn't just happening in a bubble. To get the full picture, we really have to zoom out, because all of this drama at home is playing out on a global stage, and it requires a seriously high-stakes geopolitical balancing act.
I mean, you just have to look at a map to see Nepal's tricky spot. It's literally sandwiched right between the two regional giants, India and China. That means its political stability and who it sides with is a really big deal for the entire region. And this is where things get really fascinating. For the longest time, Nepal has just been seen as a passive buffer state. You know, just a piece of land separating India and China. But now, some of these new parties are floating a completely new vision, turning Nepal into a vibrant bridge. Not a wall, but an active, buzzing economic highway connecting these two massive powers.
And of course, the big global players are watching every move. India, the longtime partner, is pushing for a smooth, stable, democratic transition. China, on the other hand, is a bit more cautious, maybe even skeptical. They're worried about all this anti-incumbency energy, and they've put some pretty strict conditions on their aid. And then there's the United States, another key player here, trying to make sure no single power, and you can probably guess who they mean, ends up dominating the region.
So, when you throw all of this together, the intense pressure at home and this complex global chess game, what do you get? A future that's, well, anything but certain.
This is the million-dollar question, right? What is the most likely outcome of this incredibly important election?
Well, if you look at how things have gone in the past, and just how fractured the political scene is right now, pretty much everyone agrees on one thing. The most likely result is a hung parliament. That means no single party has a clear majority to form a government.
In a hung parliament, that's a big deal. It has some serious knock-on effects. We're talking about unstable, revolving-door governments where leaders are constantly changing. It means all those huge, ambitious promises we just talked about could get completely sidelined by political horse trading. It makes it almost impossible to make big, decisive policy decisions, and critically, it can leave the country even more vulnerable to influence from those outside powers. Which brings us to the final, massive question hanging over everything. The challenge for Nepal's next government is just immense. Can they actually pull this off? Can they navigate the treacherous waters of a divided parliament, meet the urgent demands of an incredibly impatient generation, and successfully balance the competing interests of global superpowers all at the same time? The answer to that question will decide Nepal's path for many, many years to come.